Our final speaker is Jim Johnston. Johnston is the energy, economics, and policy guru at the Heartland Institute. We rely on him for his sound wisdom. He's formerly chief economist of Amoco Oil Company, and when we have an economics or policy problem and want straightforward, common sense wisdom, everybody at Heartland turns to Jim Johnston, and I think you'll enjoy his point of view. Jim?
Well, thank you, Jay. I actually was not the chief economist at Amoco. I was the Indian economist, ordinary brave Indian economist. Welcome to Chicago. Chicago is a unique place. Right now, for example, all of the electricity that you're enjoying, showing the slides and the rest of it, come from nuclear power. Another thing that we have in Chicago are commodity exchanges. And I'm going to be talking about cap and trade, and they're going to be playing a big role in that. Chicago is also the political home of the president and his major advisors, and perhaps at least one additional member of the Supreme Court. And let me tell you something about Chicago politics. Now you laugh. There's a good side of it. A Chicago politician, when he is bought, he stays bought. And that makes it predictable. Unfortunately, the people that went to Washington changed the rules. If you try to buy them, they change their mind and end up screwing you. For example, all of the political activities on health care, on financial regulation, and any one of the number of popular issues these days, including cap and trade, is that there are identifiable industrial evil perpetrators that they hope will help them pass the expansion of government activities. It was also the home of Amoco, a great company, until it got acquired by BP. That's a personal view. This is the first time I've done with PowerPoint presentation, and I'm reminded what a friend of mine said, that power corrupts and PowerPoint presentations corrupt absolutely. Here's the official Washington version of how we should reduce greenhouse gases over time, and this is due to Secretary Chu on April 6th, so it's the latest word. It also tracks the schedules that appear in both versions of the cap and trade bill legislation, both the House version, HR 2454, and by Waxman and Markey, and also the Senate version, which is sponsored by Senators Lieberman and Kerry, with Senator Graham from South Carolina bailing out. Now, in the interest of showing you what's behind a lot of the projections, which seems to be a theme in this conference, let me show you a little bit about demand elasticity. If you reduce the amount of energy that comes into the economy, an interesting thing happens to the price. As it becomes more scarce, the price goes up. Now I want to tell you a little bit, give you a feeling for how much the price could go up if you restrict emissions of greenhouse gases. And if you make a first approximation that it will essentially change guided by the price elasticity, say for oil or natural gas, which is the primary fuels used in our economy, notwithstanding the potential for coal, then you see that the price increase will be on the order, if you use oil, 2.5 times the percentage reduction in the greenhouse gases, or the amount of energy that's available. Now, I said that that's the increase. So if you increase something 2.5 times, if the increase is 2.5 times, that means it's 350% of the current price before you increase it. So that's what you have staring you in the face if you're talking flippantly about reducing energy consumption and emissions something like 80%. You're talking about a huge increase in the notional price. Now, whoops, now, push the wrong button. Now, is there going to be any moderation in that kind of increase in price? And you might argue that there will be some moderation because there will be emissions trading under both the House version, although it's not explicit in the House version of the bill, but it is in the Senate version. Now, you can look at past adventures with emissions trading and see if there's any guidance there. There's the reclaim system that was concentrated on oxides of nitrogen. It was in 2001. The sulfur dioxide emissions reductions under the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990, and the carbon bill, this is the House bill that I'm talking about, in 2009. All of those emissions trading schemes have an interesting provision in them, is that the allowances are denied property rights. Now, why is that important? It's important because in the U.S. Constitution, under the Fifth Amendment, if the government takes your property away, then it must compensate you for the takings. However, if the bill includes in it a denial of property right status, then the government can take the allowances away from you and doesn't have to compensate you. Tough luck if you participate under a system like that. Another disturbing feature of these emission allowances schemes is that there is lurking in the background the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that has cognizance over the wholesale price of electricity. And all electric utilities have prices that are deemed just and reasonable by the FERC. Now, if the FERC changes its mind and decides that the prices that electric utilities are paying, say for allowances, are not just and reasonable, they're too high, then they can allow the electric utilities to escape from their contractual obligations. Now, it happened both in the electricity market in California in 2001, and it happened also in the reclaim market for allowances or credits in 2001 as well, both of these in California. So when you add into all of the regulation and the provisions, keep in mind that the FERC is lurking in the background, willing to destroy all of the contractual relationships, willing and able. Now, let me talk a little bit about the Senate bill. I waded through all of this 1,000 pages, including the summary and the line by line or the section by section summary of the bill, and that I fully expect that in the hereafter I will receive a plenary indulgence for that effort. It's not recommended for the faint of heart. Well, the first thing that you should notice about the bill is with respect to agriculture, forestry, and is that they are exempt from emissions reductions or greenhouse gas emissions. So the farmers and the forestry people are getting off free under the Senate bill. Not so under the House bill. There are going to be international offset sources, and all of this, of course, is going to depend upon how clever the international people abroad, I mean, they put Chicago politicians to shame. To essentially justify these offset sources. But keep in mind that government will change its mind about which are the eligibility requirements. There are going to be nuclear financial incentives, interestingly, but no waste disposal provisions in the Senate bill. It's very serious. There are going to be provisions for studying natural gas and electric vehicles and continue the wind and solar studies in hopes that someday they will be financially viable and play a role. Although the more government gives incentives for studying and doing demonstration, the later that they will become commercial, because if they ever become commercial, they will lose that government support for the development. The basis of the trading will be 7,500 core greenhouse gas sources. These comprise electric utilities, energy companies, and factories. No agriculture, as I said before. All of the allowances or the reduced emissions that you're allowed must be bought at auction. And there's going to be, as I indicated below, there's a $12 minimum price on the auctions. So there's a market to the point of you can pay anything you want, but it has to be at least $12 per ton of allowances. The FERC still has the authority to say if prices are just and reasonable. The trading restrictions have the reservation prices of $12. It's very interesting. The summary of the bill talks about a collar, not only a floor price, but also a ceiling price. And when I look at the bill, I can't find any ceiling price. But it's there, and it's under the guise of the FERC authority to determine what's just and reasonable. And they will be expected to step in if the prices that electric utilities have to pay for the allowances gets too high. All trades must be on carbon exchanges and under the regulation of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. That has one attractive aspect. Once it will be subject to the clearing institution. However, the institution, even though it's on carbon exchange, they will not protect the trades. One thing about trading in Chicago is that the exchanges do not protect the traders. They protect the trades. In the 110-year history of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, there hasn't been one failed trade, including 2 weeks ago when there was this very dramatic change in the prices. No failed trades if you concentrate on protecting the trades. However, if you concentrate on protecting the traders, that's another story. Now, the Chicago Carbon Exchange was just recently sold on May 1st to the Intercontinental Exchange for a price of $603 million. Now, that's a lesson. The application of economics and environmental policy has not been successful. However, it has made some economists successful. And Richard Sander is the owner of the Chicago Commodity Exchange, and he's going to be living the life, not of Riley, but of Hugh Hefner, also a Chicagoan. Well, here are the strategies if you're going to play this game. Actually reduce your emissions plus a little extra for unexpected energy shocks. Do mergers and joint ventures in order to average your emissions over all of the sources. If you know of a source that's about to be shut down, buy it, and that will allow you to average your emissions over. It's a form of internal trading, so you don't have to have firm property rights under those conditions, because usually one division of a company does not renege on its obligations in another division. That's a good way to ruin your career in the company. The other strategy is that during unusual peak periods, you have the option of buying energy from other sources, and that makes a very interesting implication, and that is that what is the fuel at the margin for electric utilities and most energy consumers? In the United States, it's natural gas. I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry. Here's the relationship between natural gas and the carbon credits. You'll see that there's a distinct relationship between the price of natural gas. This is the forward contract traded on the New York Mercantile Exchange. And the carbon credit is essentially the spot price. Notice that the spot price in the most recent period is less than $1 in the United States. It's a little higher in Europe. But it's clear that no one trusts most emissions trading schemes sufficiently so that they'll put their money in the credits. They will hedge their risk exposure by taking positions in natural gas. Very liquid contract, goes out a decade or so you get a lot of protection in that. By the way, it was pioneered by Enron, which also underscores another thing about the politics of trading, and that is that if you bring a successful trade and a useful market, you end up serving 24 years in jail. The carbon prices in Europe are around $12, but they show the same bump in the 2008 period, even though the natural gas markets in Europe are not very closely connected. There's not a lot of trading between them and the United States. Also, another thing that needs to be pointed out is that currently, if you look at the price of crude oil, again, this is West Texas Intermediate, which is traded on the Merc, and also the NYMEX, pardon me. There's also the Henry Hub natural gas prices. You'll see that they follow one another up until 2008-2009 period, but now they're diverging in their behavior. So there are two regimes here, one in which the change in oil price is approximately the same as natural gas, or at least shows the same pattern. And the other regime after 2009 is that natural gas and oil are diverging. So let me conclude, maybe a little early. Not much moderation can be expected in energy price increases by the existence of cap and trade markets. The other serious point is that there is going to be serious damage to the economy given the elasticity of oil and natural gas. And finally, I don't see very much relief coming until it becomes evident that emissions reductions do not mitigate warming. Now, I offered, when I began this, to Brian Lehman whether he would like to do a little trading of time on speaking time, and I said, how much additional time would you like, Brian? And he said 5 minutes, and I said, fine, that'll be $500. And he recoiled in shock. And apparently his reservation price was closer to zero. Now, Alan, of course, is exempt because of pious behavior previously in other markets. So it's very interesting that in economic meetings, we economists never depend upon emission trading schemes like the government seems to do. Thank you so much.